Did you know that aligning your menstrual cycle can unlock profound insights into your overall health and well being? Today, I'll be speaking with Veda Leclerc, a renowned women's health coach and expert in total body transformations, about the power of cycle syncing. You'll discover how to harmonize your lifestyle with the natural rhythms of your body and how this practice can enhance your energy, mood, and productivity. Join us as we deep dive into the transformative world of cycle syncing.
Welcome to My True Health podcast. I'm Michele Scarlett, a board certified functional medicine practitioner, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, certified personal trainer, and women's health coach. I'm here to help women achieve true health by deep diving into the symptoms that often go ignored or dismissed. Join me and other experts in the women's health space as we uncover the truth around all things women's health. Hello, friends. Before we dive into today's episode, this is your friendly reminder to rate and review my podcast so more women like you get access to it. We know how important it is to empower and educate women to be advocates for their own health because the information we share on this podcast is not the information we're taught by our doctors.
Hey everyone, welcome Veda Leclerc. She is a dedicated health practitioner on a mission to guide individuals from the shadows of their health challenges into the brilliance of finding their inner glow. Having faced her own struggles navigating the ins and outs of the medical system, from Lyme disease, crippling anxiety and depression, cystic acne, and more, Veda understands the darkness that can cloud one's being. She is committed to bringing light to others' health journeys and has established Wellness by Veda, offering personalized one on one coaching, employing a holistic whole body approach. Welcome to my podcast today, Veda.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Okay, well let's dive right in. Let's talk a little bit about your story because that bio is intense. That's you are experiencing a lot of things. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I started experiencing some crazy health symptoms when I was young. I was 17 at the time. I was in high school. It started off with some weird skin rashes throughout my body, and I went to the dermatologist, and they were like, use a better moisturizer. So I fell for it. I tried the moisturizer. It obviously didn't work. And a few months later, I started to experience even more bizarre symptoms. It was to the point where I was in and out of the hospital. I was in ambulances. I was passing out. I was bedridden. I lost like 20 pounds in a week. I was so fatigued. I felt miserable. I quite literally thought I was dying. I was out of school for a while. I was at sports for a while. And eventually I got my energy back. And the labs that I got done with my doctors, everything came back normal. They tested me for literally everything. So I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm starting to feel better. Brush it off. Well, just 2 months later, I got extremely ill again. It was actually worse than the previous time. And I was like, how could I even feel worse than I did? But I did. I was so bedridden. I was literally crawling to the bathroom to go to be able to go to the bathroom. I couldn't stand in the shower. Like, my mom had to help me. It was miserable. I was back into the ER, back into the doctors, couldn't figure out what was wrong with me once again. And it was just frustrating because it was like I was in high school at the time. Like, I don't want to be dealing with this. I want to be hanging with my friends. I want to be in the sports that I'm doing. And it was just miserable. And the thing that was different this time is I started to experience panic attacks. So it wasn't just the physical symptoms, it was the mental as well. I remember just one night waking up like in my dead sleep, and I like was screaming to my mom, and I was like, "Mom, like what's wrong? Like, I'm literally panicking." I didn't know why. It's not that like I could pinpoint why I was sad or something was going on in my life that would cause that, but I was just having a panic attack. And that one panic attack turned into daily panic attacks. I couldn't even go to school in the morning. And if the days that I did go to school, I would literally sit in class and start crying. And people would look at me and be like, like, what's going on? And I would like have to leave school. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't hang out with friends. I couldn't go to sporting events. I couldn't do literally anything because I was so terrified that I would just start crying and have a full blown panic attack. And that just continued to happen over and over again. And I went to the doctor, I went to a counselor, and she ended up prescribing me an antidepressant. I was so desperate, so I took it. And I want to say it helped, but honestly, it didn't overly help. Like it may have reduced some of the side effects, but I still was not feeling good. My physical symptoms were still at an all-time high. It wasn't to the point where I was bedridden or crawling to the bathroom, but I now had constant bloating and constipation, and my skin was breaking out. My hair was falling out in clumps. I literally had bald spots at age 17. I was freaking out. I'm like, is this cancer? Like, what the heck is going on with me? And long story short, I went to a naturopath because my mom was seeing one at the time. So she's like, Veda, like this, something's wrong, especially with the hair falling out piece. We got really concerned. So I went to a naturopath. We got just basic blood panel done. Everything was super imbalanced. She just put me on like a short little regimen to help me. It did make a little bit of a difference, but I was still not feeling good at all. So she's like, let's test you for Lyme disease. So I did a full panel for Lyme disease. I was like a week or two into my freshman year of college. It was the year during COVID, and I get a
Wait,
call
this
from my
started when you were 17 and we didn't even get to some like answers until you were in college.
yeah, it was a long time coming. Um,
Okay.
But yeah, I'm now in college. I'm a freshman in college. I'm 4.5 hours away from home during COVID, and I get a call from my doctor. You tested positive for Lyme disease. And my mom calls me like freaking out, like, oh my God, Vita, you have Lyme disease. We need to do something about it. Like, oh my gosh. And I'm sitting there like a smile on my face because I'm like, oh my God, like I knew there was something wrong. And this is why I feel like crap all the time. And it was almost like this weight off my shoulder of like, oh, like, wow, we have answers now. And because I went undiagnosed for so long, I couldn't just go on a quick round of antibiotics. Like I had to do an herbal route. I had to completely change my lifestyle, completely change my diet habits. And it was hard at first because I was a college student. I had no health background. Like I was eating Pop Tarts for breakfast. I was skipping meals. Like I did not care about my health at all. So it was really hard for me. And it took a while, but I started to notice like the benefits of it. Like if I started off with cutting out gluten, I was like, whoa, I started to feel better. And eventually it just grew my passion for health and wellness because I started to listen to more podcasts about it, read books about it, follow people on social media about it. And I just grew such a huge passion for it, and I saw what it did to my body. So I was like, wow, I want to make this a career. So my senior year of college, I went to school to be a therapist, and I did an internship my senior year. I was looking into grad schools for social work and all the things. And I was like, I don't think this is what I'm meant to do. So right after I graduated, I immediately enrolled in more schooling, and I became a practitioner, a health coach, and now I'm the founder of Wellness by Veda. Long story short.
Wow, like that's an incredible journey. I have a couple of questions, and I know that's not what we're here to talk about today, but I feel like the listeners of my podcast are going to want to know, like, what did your medical doctors say to your symptoms? Like, what were the outcome of that? I know your naturopath is what you brought you to the head of all of this, but like, there were 2 years in between that. Like what was happening when you were having panic attacks daily, the cystic acne, the bloating, all of those things? What were your doctors saying about it?
Yeah, so the typical like Western medicine doctors that I was going to, they just hit me with, sorry, there's nothing wrong. Like we tested you for everything. I got tons of blood work done. I got tons of like the other testing, like mono and strep and influenza and all those things. And they're like, everything's normal. They said it's just gonna pass. It's a virus going around. It's winter time. I lived in Maine. And they're like, oh, it'll pass. It'll come by. And I'm like, it never really passed. Like I just kept experiencing. And if anything, it kept getting worse and worse. And I started getting all these symptoms that I never was experiencing. And I was like, this is not normal, especially for someone my age, being surrounded by my friends who aren't dealing with any of the things that I'm dealing with, is when I was like, okay, we need to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad your mom brought you to that naturopath. So everybody thinks that Lyme disease comes from a tick bite. Do you remember a time where you were bit by a tick, or was this something I've read recently that it can actually come from fleas and mosquitoes as well? But just curious, do you remember the moment where you think you can pinpoint Lyme disease from?
I wish I could, but I don't remember at all. And the timing that I started experiencing symptoms was like fall winter time, which is kind of shocking because when you think of ticks, you think of like the summertime and like being out in the woods. And I'm not overly a woodsy person. Like yes, I'd go on a hike here or there, but I wasn't like eat, sleep, breathe, going on hikes, being in the woods, all of those
Mm.
things. So I can't recall. I never got a bullseye rash. I did get skin rashes, but it wasn't anything like a bullseye. It was just almost like a allergic reaction type of rash. So it was definitely weird. And when I did get tested for Lyme, it actually showed that I was bit twice and I had multiple co-infections. So my theory is I got bit before I got really sick in December, and then I might have got rebit, which caused me to fall really ill again a few months later. So, but I don't know for sure. Like, I can't pinpoint when. And honestly, it kind of creeps me out the fact that like a tick was crawling inside of me and I had no clue.
Yeah, fair. That is kind of gross. Well, like I had mentioned before we started recording, my family just moved out to the country and we've like legitimately got like wetlands. Like there's nobody around us. And it's definitely something that's on my radar. And we've got a dog. So she's somebody I'm checking all the time. And obviously I've got a little kid and I'm also checking him because it's miserable. And, if you go the Western medicine route, it's like highly undetectable. They do not use any kind of tests to test
Mhm.
for it. It's almost as if they don't believe it's a condition.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm really glad you went the naturopath route. I'm glad there is testing. So, guys, if you are, really struggling, and you've tried everything and you haven't looked into Lyme disease, like that might be one of the tests that you can do. So, practitioners like Veda or like myself can order these, naturopaths can order these. So, just ask. It's better to rule it out than to go years undiagnosed and then eventually it's co-infections and like there's just so much going on. Okay. So thank you so much for telling us your story. You've got a pretty incredible background. You're so young. And I'm so excited for you and your business moving forward. But today, our topic of conversation is cycle syncing. So before we sort of dive into exactly what we're talking about, can you give my listeners just a really general idea of what cycle syncing is?
Yeah. So cycle syncing is basically living and eating according to what phase of the cycle that you're in. So when I'm talking about cycle syncing, I'm talking about like a woman's cycle of you have your menstrual phase, your follicular, ovulatory, luteal, and it's changing your lifestyle habits, your eating habits, your workouts based on what phase you're in at that time.
Okay, perfect. Now, my next question is if somebody is on birth control, before we
Mm,
dive in, if somebody is on birth control, they're technically having a synthetic period if they're on the pill, if they give themselves a week to have a period. But a lot of women who are on an IUD don't get a period. Can you still apply what we're about to talk about if you are on birth control?
Yeah, so I kind of have two different answers to that. Is one, technically, it's not going to provide the same benefits because ultimately cycle syncing is living with the rise and fall of estrogen and progesterone. But when you're on birth control, it shuts down that connection of your body making those hormones. So you're not necessarily helping that rise and fall. However, you can still take what we're going to talk about today, eat the nutrient dense foods, listen to your body with workouts, listen to your body and the lifestyle habits. All of those things can apply to you. So then when you do come off of birth control, you're not hit with horrible cramps, cystic acne, heavy bleeds. So we want to prevent that from happening, and supporting your body in this way can certainly help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of women end up on birth control because they're told that it cures or helps these kinds of symptoms. So bad PMS, bad cramping, lots of acne, mood swings, sugar cravings, etc. And you're put on birth control for that purpose. And, personally, people that I work with have been on birth control 30 years and don't even know where they're at, right? So starting with the good habits before you come off might make coming off far easier.
Agreed. And I can attest to that because I was on birth control for 5 or 6 years. And before coming off birth control is when I really honed in on making sure that all of my labs were at a better place, making sure I was eating healthier and all those things. So when I did come off birth control, it was like my final resort of like getting that true optimal health. And I didn't experience the side effects that most people do because I supported my body beforehand.
Good for you. Good for you. What made you want to come off the pill, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I was doing all the things. This was about like 2 years, a year or 2 years into my Lyme healing journey. And I was learning more about birth control. I was reading like Dr. Jolene Brighton's books and educating myself. And I was like, birth control does not support you. Has zero health benefits. And I've come so far in my health that it was like the last thing that I needed to get rid of to truly achieve that optimal healing. So I ended up coming off of it and I have zero regrets at all.
Good for you. I have similar story. My mom, when I was, I think 16, I went on the pill. My mom was so against it. And now in hindsight, I think about my mom has lived, she likes to live very naturally. It's very intuitive for her if I think back in hindsight. And I know she was trying to instill that in me, but when you're 16, you know it all. And you're like, oh no, that's not what I'm going to do. So eventually, I think I was only on the pill for about 4 years when I really realized the side effects of it and how crappy I felt on it, and decided to come off. And then I think that probably was the start of my holistic journey, not necessarily healing, but just living a little bit more naturally, and realizing how quickly inflammation comes down, realizing how quickly, like, your natural body functions, just in terms of sexuality, really, how that shifts.
Mhm.
So for instance, the pill I found, like, just plummeted libido. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
if you think about, the reason you have a libido is because biologically it's like you need to ovulate and reproduce. Your libido is going to increase around the time of ovulation. And if you're on the pill, you don't ovulate, you don't have that increase of estrogen, you're not going to feel that way.
Mhm.
So my main reason to be on the pill was truly birth control. It wasn't to do with my PMS or acne or pain or anything like that. It truly was birth control. But like, what's the point of birth control if you don't even want to have sex? Right?
Exactly.
So that was a huge one for me. And then it was like you just start to learn your body, which is what we're going to talk about today, is just like learning what's going on naturally in your body. And you can use that as a birth control method. If you know when you ovulate and you don't want to have kids, there are methods of prevention that you can use that are far more natural and have far less side effects.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
that's one big one. I'm not a big proponent of birth control. I'm sure you could have guessed that. One thing that I will just make mention of, that I am pro birth control. The only part of it that I am pro birth control, it allows women the freedom and the autonomy to choose when they want to have a family. And I don't want to disregard that. Um, it puts them in control of what their next phase of life might look like. Now, I felt better to choose that in a natural way, but when women decide to go on because they don't want to have children right now and they just want to prevent that, um, I can still respect that decision.
Yes, for sure.
So let's start. Let's talk about the different phases of the menstrual cycle and how it differs from men.
Yes. So it's very, very different. And typically for a woman, it's anywhere from like 28 to typically the highest I would say would be like 35. So falling within that range is our cycle, whereas a male cycle is 24 hours. So it is very different. That's why women, they may be more known for being more emotional or more moody or have more cravings. And that's because that's how our body was made. Like we have rise and falls of hormones, whereas guys is just like, oh, testosterone comes up, comes down, and it just is 24 hours. So they can do the same thing every day if they wanted to, and they're not going to have the side effects that we have. And throughout our 28 days, like I said, our hormones fluctuate so much. So at the beginning, which is roughly days like 1 through 14 or 1 through 16, that's when the estrogen, so I went on our menstrual phase, that's when our estrogen and progesterone are at our lowest. So that's when the bleed occurs. Your day one that you have blood coming out of you, that's when hormones are the lowest, and we're gonna feel low. Like we're not gonna feel energized. We're not gonna feel like we're ready to go conquer our to-do list or whatever it may be. And then as those days start to come and like we trickle into after our period and into that follicular phase, that's when that estrogen starts to rise. And estrogen is that hormone that gives us energy. It makes us excited to do things and to conquer the world. And that's when that starts to rise and into that ovulation, which is like the middle of our cycle. That's why you feel more energized during that time. Like it's a normal thing, it's how your hormones are reacting. And once you ovulate, that's when that estrogen and the progesterone they start to change a little bit, and your estrogen starts to slowly come down and your progesterone starts to come up, which is that relaxation hormone. So that's why in the second phase of your cycle you're going to feel more tired. You may not have the energy to go hit a new PR at the gym, the same that you felt 14 days ago. And that's normal. Like it's normal to not feel as energized. It's normal to maybe crave a little bit more of the carbs or more calories because our bodies do need that during that phase of the cycle. Whereas it's not normal that you're experiencing fatigue to the point where you can't get out of bed, or you're experiencing cravings to the point where you need to eat a bar of chocolate or you're gonna like kill someone. Like there's a balance between that. But it is normal to feel your body literally shift throughout the month because of the rise and fall of estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so interesting to think about a couple of things here. So, like, men are on a 24-hour cycle with their hormones, including their cortisol and their melatonin. And I know that we are also on that phase with that. But like, they just wake up and do their thing and they go to sleep, and it's just day to day. And if you think about society, society was built for a man's cycle, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and it's kind of annoying and it kind of triggers me a little bit, but lucky for you and me who are business owners, and maybe we can create our life around our cycle. But this is also the reason men tend to have an easier time losing weight when they change one aspect in their world. So ladies, if you are eating the same thing every day, day in and day out, doesn't matter, and you're not taking into account your cycle, could that have something to do with somebody's ability to lose weight? Right?
Exactly.
It's like you need to focus on where your energy is and eat and adapt for that. So that brings me to my next question. Tell me about eating and what we should be eating throughout our cycle.
Yeah, so I think that's so important to note what you just said, especially the weight loss factor, because I see time and time again women talking about that they're working with, say, a fitness coach, and Monday through Friday they have the same exact exercises. They're continuously being in a caloric deficit, decreasing their calories, but they can't lose weight. And it's because as a female body and as a woman, we were not designed to do that. You're going to have more successful weight loss when you are living according to your cycle. So in that second phase, when that energy is lowest, if you're going to the gym and hitting a workout that you just hit in the beginning of your phase, that's probably going to make you store weight because it's stressing your body the heck out. You're eating in a caloric deficit where your body is craving nutrients, it's craving more food, but you're not giving it to it. So it's going to freak out. It's going to go into fight or flight mode. And when you're in fight or flight, your body's not getting that signal to go and lose weight. So that's just something I want to point out that a lot of women don't realize, but it's truly going to be the key in their weight loss journey, even though most of society is telling them otherwise. But anyway, going back to the food point. So for the beginning, so I'll go by phases. So typically in the luteal and menstrual phase, so this is the after you ovulate, this is when that progesterone is higher. This is when you're feeling a little bit more, not under the weather, but just more tired and more relaxed. And during this time, we really want to focus on warming foods. We want to focus on foods that nourish our body. Like think of like fall and winter foods. I like to look at our phases as different seasons. So think of that fall and winter like squash and bone broth and stews and soups. That just really helps support and comfort our body as we go through this. Focusing on iron-rich food, good, especially when we do start to bleed. We're losing that blood. So like grass-fed meats is super duper important, liver, things like that. In the luteal phase, focusing on omega 3s is super duper important. And I noticed that when I decrease my omega-6s, which is things like seed oils, like vegetable oil, canola oil, all that processed junk, and then replace it with omega-3s, whether it's through a supplementation for extra support or wild caught salmon, things like that are high in those omega-3s. It helps balance out your body and it reduces inflammation. And essentially, PMS is a sign that there's inflammation in your body. And when I switched this out, my cramps like disappeared. I was like, I remember the first cycle I had and I didn't have any cramps. I was like, whoa, like I don't have to pop ibuprofen right now. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It is possible when you eat according to your cycle. And also in those phases, if you focus on sesame and sunflower seeds, because those help with that progesterone production, and it helps just eliminate any excess estrogen that you have. Because a lot of the times, like I said, progesterone is supposed to rise and estrogen kind of stays a little bit lower. But a lot of people have that imbalance because stress in itself lowers progesterone. And if you're a stressed out human, if you're working out not according to your cycle, if you're not eating according to your cycle, that's stressing your body out. So there goes your estrogen when progesterone should be high. It can cause excess estrogen. It can cause that hormonal acne. It can cause that uncomfortable bloating, the cramping. So also eating foods like cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, cauliflower, cabbage, things like that. It actually helps bind to that estrogen and helps you eliminate it out of your body. So those are some foods to incorporate there. And then in the follicular, ovulatory, that's like spring and summer. That's when you can focus more on like the cooling foods, like maybe a salad or a smoothie, things like that. Focusing on pumpkin and flax seeds because that helps form the egg production. When you do go to ovulate, it contains high amounts of zinc and vitamin B6. So all those things can really help support that ovulation. So what I kind of look at it as is that first half, you really want to support your body to produce a healthy egg. So that if you are trying to get pregnant, it makes it more possible, or you just have that healthy ovulation. And then the second phase, we really want to support when we do have our period. So focusing on those warming foods that nourish our body is going to be really helpful with that.
Yeah, I just want to add to that because if we're just thinking biologically, right? As a woman, we are made to bleed and then we are made to feel really great and ovulate, and then we are made to have a baby. So to support a baby, get pregnant, your progesterone has to rise. Your body needs to be nourished. That is the phase. Your luteal phase, excuse me, your luteal phase is the phase where you would be pregnant if you were trying to get pregnant. So, what is it that you're going to be doing naturally in that phase? You are going to want to nourish your body. You are now growing a human. That is a very natural process. Um, and then, obviously, if you don't end up getting pregnant, then you bleed again. But I think that we have to, this is kind of like honoring just a woman biologically. I think in our society today, it's really easy to honor the first half of our cycle. So what I mean by that is when we're in the follicular phase and the ovulation phase, our energy is high, right? So we can honor that. That feels good to honor, right? And I think that women do that very naturally in our society. We are we're eating the salads, we're having those smoothies. Those are good for us all the time. We're hitting those PR in the gym, we're sweating, we're doing those HIIT workouts, we're running more perhaps. That's really easy to support. If you are sort of going by your body, what's not easy to support is the follicular phase and the menstrual phase is when, because I don't think a lot of people listen to their body when they're tired, and people don't listen to their body when they need to be more relaxed. And if you think about, if you're eating in a calorie deficit in that second half of your cycle, you are causing more stress on your body, which means your progesterone is lowering. In that phase of your cycle, you want your progesterone at its highest, not only for a nice painless period, but if you are trying to conceive, you don't want your body under stress. You need that progesterone to support a growing baby. That is so important. I feel very, very lucky. I have the greatest husband in the world. The other day, I said to him, because I also cycle sync. And the other day, I said to him, I was like, oh, I just really want like a solid 8 hours of doing nothing, just one day. we have a toddler, so it's almost impossible to do that. And he looked at me and he goes, "Well, why don't we look at the calendar and you can pick a day that you want to do that?" And I was like, "Okay." So then I went to bed and I got up, and the next day I was like, "Okay, I think I'm going to do that in a week and a half. And I'm going to do it when you're off work. You have a day off work, so you can do all the things around the house while son is at daycare. And I can just go upstairs and watch TV all day if I don't want to do anything else." And he goes, "Great. I love that." I was like, "Amazing." And
Awesome.
I'm going to do that in my follicular phase because I know that that's when it's the best time to support that. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it at all.
Right. Yes, that's awesome.
But yes, no, it's those are excellent tips in terms of food. I love the idea of thinking about your menstrual cycle like different seasons, and what you would naturally do in the fall and the winter is definitely eat those stews and chilies and foods that are maybe like have more heat, a little bit more spice, things that you like feel good eating, like comfort food. Right? And then in the spring and the summer, you tend to enjoy the lighter foods. So that's a really, really easy way to think about that. So I love that. So now let's talk about exercise during each phase. What do you recommend in terms of exercise?
Yeah, so I recommend when we are in the menstrual, the luteal phase, that time where that progesterone is more out of a rise. Like I said, progesterone is that more resting hormone. Estrogen's the hormone that gives us energy, and estrogen's at the lowest during that time. So we want to honor that. We want to live according to that estrogen and that progesterone. So focusing on lighter movement, focusing on doing Pilates, stretching, walking, doing light weightlifting. This isn't the time to hit your new PR, to push yourself in the gym, and even taking rest days, like literally taking a day, like you said, to do absolutely nothing. I promise you, it's not going to hinder your weight loss goals. If
Yeah.
anything, it's going to help you, it's going to support you. So just completely taking a day of rest is also super important. And then once we're done our bleed and like we're in that follicular, we're in that ovulatory, you're naturally going to feel the energy come up. Like your body's going to crave movement. It's going to be like, let's go to the gym. Like, let's go lift the heavier weights. Maybe go for a run, maybe do a workout class, a cycling class, whatever it may be. That's when you can improve the intensity a little bit and you'll feel it in your body. Like, my main thing, if you genuinely are new to figuring out what cycle you're in and you're kind of confused, listen to your body. When you become so in tune with your body, you will know. Like, I don't even, I like, I quote unquote track my cycle. I don't overly, because I'm so in tune that I know. Like, I know, I'm like, I'm about to start my period any day. I'm like, I'm craving some chocolate right now. It's coming. And then I start it the next day. And when you're in tune with your body like that, you will know what your body needs. And one thing I do want to point out is, yes, cycle syncing your workouts is super important. But also, if you're someone whose adrenals are taxed, you are in fight or flight constantly, you are dealing with constant fatigue and all of these issues, I'm not telling you to push yourself through an intensity workout just because you're in the ovulatory phase. Once again, listen to your body. If you have a hectic day at work, I don't care if you're ovulating or not, you go take a rest day. You go do some stretching. You go do a long walk. You don't need to go do a intense workout just because your estrogen is at its highest at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Here's the other thing. If you are constantly in fight or flight, technically you might be in your follicular phase and your estrogen is rising, but you might actually have some tanked sex hormones if you're always like, if you've got some adrenal dysfunction. So you might not even have the energy technically because you're in your follicular phase. Like you might not have it at all. So I feel like that's a really important one to know as well. So I work with some women who have endometriosis. I'm sure you will also work with women who have endometriosis at some point. And um, leading up to their period, so when their progesterone is supposed to be coming up, but their estrogen, if they're estrogen dominant, what we do is we really focus on stress relief. What we do is we really focus on increasing magnesium. We focus on increasing omega 3s. We focus on all of those things, nourishing foods. We focus on castor oil packs. We focus on getting all of that inflammation down and truly supporting that progesterone rise. Because what we don't want to see is estrogen take over our luteal phase, which is what causes all of the inflammation, the heavy bleeding, the massive bloating in my endometriosis clients. And it makes all the difference if they are putting in the effort in their luteal phase.
Yes. And something I want to make note is for people who are listening is we're not here to just give you a supplement. Oh, okay. Well, what can help lower my estrogen? Tell me what supplement to take. And I know a lot of people get caught up on that of like, oh, a TikToker said this got rid of their PMS blow, so I need to go buy it. And the next thing you know, you buy it, you wasted your money, it doesn't work, you're back to square one, and you feel like crap. And the foundations will truly take you the farthest. And most of them are free. Like balancing our blood sugar is free. Eating balanced meals, it's free. Exposing yourself to sunlight in the morning, it's free. Like doing all those things, deep breathing, it's free. That we already have in our toolbox is going to really help with that hormone production. You don't need a fancy supplement regimen or all these expensive things to get you feeling better. It's just the foundations that will take you the furthest.
Absolutely, I agree. And you know what? You did touch on seed cycling. You didn't call it that, but you did mention having flax and pumpkin in your follicular phase and having sesame and sunflower in your follicular phase. And I can attest to how that works and how well that works. Now, I am somebody who works on the foundations of that every day, all day, but I certainly seed cycle, and it helped me within 2 months get from postmenopausal level hormones to pregnant and like having a perfectly healthy pregnancy. And so funny enough, I just ran a Dutch, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, and I am 18 months postpartum now, and we are thinking about trying for a second. And I wanted to do some testing and see where I'm at. And I did, my hormones were totally tanked again due to stress. I mean, life is stressful and it happens. And so the first thing I did was incorporate my seed cycling again. And I can already tell you it's been 6 weeks, and my last period was exactly on time, and it was painless and totally like, 4 days long. And like I barely even noticed it was there. My skin just feels so much smoother and clearer. Not that I usually have breakouts, but I can get kind of blotchy, and that is like completely gone. And I've noticed a lot doing the just relaxation in my luteal phase how it has helped my stress levels. So like 6 weeks of working on this and things have changed massively already. So
Mhm.
if you don't believe it, it is real, and it can change your life. And I think it has changed your life.
Yes. Yes. Seed cycling has helped me a lot. And just working on all the other foundations, living according to my cycle has been game changer for me. And when I first started learning about it, I was a junior in college, I believe, and I had horrible PMS. The very first day of my period, I would dread it so much because sometimes I had to call out of class. Like I had to email my professor and I was like, I can't come to class today. Like I'm horrible cramps, like literally horrible. Skin was breaking out. I felt miserable, so fatigued. And at this point in my life, I was like a gym rat. Like I was like going to the gym every day, wake up, fasted, immediately go do a workout. After my workout, even though I felt so fatigued, I was like, oh, that's just because it was a good workout. I'm burning my calories, I'm reaching my goals. Hour, get ready for the day, wouldn't have breakfast again for like another hour. And I'd wonder why I was having such bad PMS. And I remember it was that like the winter time of my junior year, and I was on Christmas break at home, and I got my wisdom teeth out, and then I got COVID. So I had a long time to just relax. Like I was like watching TV every day, wasn't really doing my intense workouts, and I had my period and I noticed I didn't have any symptoms. And I was like, whoa, like I've never had a period with no symptoms. What's going on? And I started to realize I was like, is it because I slowed down? Like, is it because I wasn't doing HIIT every single day? So when I went back to college, I was like, I made that a goal for myself. I was like, I'm I'm going to do lower intensity workouts. I'm not going to push myself every day. I started learning more about cycles, thinking I was reading books about it, listening more about it, and my PMS completely disappeared. And I was like, whoa, like this is absolutely crazy. I thought PMS was normal. I thought I was going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. And I just noticed the difference it made in my life. And now you will never see me doing like an intense leg day in the luteal phase. Like I'll be like, no, I have no interest in that. I feel more in tune in my body more than ever. Like I can feel when my estrogen and progesterone are rising or lowering. I can feel when my body is stressed. And I have never ever have PMS. And the only time I can think of that I've had PMS in the past like year was actually just my last cycle. And it was the time where I moved. I moved 23 hours away from home. First time on my own. I was staying up later. I was sleeping in. I was all over the place. And I was due for my period, and my irritability was like through the roof. My cravings were through the roof. And I hadn't had that in so long. But then I look back, I'm like, I didn't honor my cycle. I was go, go, go. I never rested. I was not eating the nutrients I needed to eat. And I felt the aftermath. So it's just that motivator of like, this stuff works.
It really, really, and it, like you said, it's foundational and it's free. You're going to
Mhm.
eat anyway. Eat
Right.
according to your cycle. You already have a gym membership.
Mhm.
You don't have to do the HIIT classes every single day. I'm with you on that. I owned a gym for 13 years and we did a lot of like CrossFit style workouts, which was amazing. And they have their place. And I'm not saying they don't. And I certainly do HIIT style workouts still, but I absolutely push that into when I have the energy. Otherwise, it's like I love incorporating Pilates. I love incorporating just walking or some yoga or even just some like light strength training without that super heart rate inducing style. And learning to balance that has been tough. And I know that there are a lot of women out there being like, but no, I want to run every day. And cool, except you aren't honoring your cycle. And it might catch up with you. It might not. You might be somebody who can tolerate stress for a long time, but I was somebody who's tolerated it for like a solid 10 years and then I couldn't.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And then it like hit me hard when COVID hit and my gym closed. I'm here in Toronto. And so we were closed for a really long time. But it was like everything that I had been running on for 10 years like hit me like a brick wall. And nothing I did gave me energy. Nothing I did helped me lose like 20 pounds that I gained in a month because my cortisol levels were through the roof. Nothing helped. And honoring my cycle was the thing that did it. And I want to just touch on a point that you mentioned. When you first went to college and before you were diagnosed with Lyme and everything, you were eating Pop Tarts for breakfast, or you'd skip breakfast or you skip meals, or you'd do a heavy HIIT workout and then you wouldn't eat for hours. I have so many women come to me who say to me, they're just not hungry in the morning. They just can't eat in the morning. They just can't, they just can't, they just can't. And I talk to them a lot about the foundations as well. And like, if you can't get this going, I'm not saying you need to sit down and have bacon and eggs and toast and like a huge meal, but you need to give your body something. You need to give it something. Start with some fruit. Wake your body up. Start with some fruit. Don't run on an empty stomach. And then as you start to feel hungry, because eating a little bit can tend to cause a little bit more hunger, your body is waking up, your stomach acid is going, saying, give me a little bit more. Then you can sit down and have a couple of eggs. Like you can work with it, but you can't skip. You can't skip breakfast. You can't do it. Not if you are wanting to lose weight, not if you are struggling with adrenal dysfunction, not if you are struggling with stress in general. If you are an A type personality, I am an A type personality. I think you are an A type personality as well. Like you cannot go without nourishing your body, period.
Yes, yes, I love that. That's such an important thing to know because for the longest time I was fed information, intermittent fast, intermittent fast. It's so good for losing weight. It's so good for your hormones. I kid you not, I would wake up, I'd work out, and I wouldn't eat till 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Sometimes that would be my first meal. And I wondered why my lab results showed I was tanked, why my cortisol was through the roof. And I was the same way. I had gone so long without eating breakfast and skipping it that I had no appetite. I always used to wonder, I was like, how the heck do people wake up and eat? Like, I'm like, how do you do that? Like, I have zero appetite. And then I started to not necessarily force myself, but I started to, in the morning, like you said, it doesn't have to be a big breakfast, but I started off with like drinking a cup of bone broth or
Yeah.
having a of nuts or having like half of an apple with almond butter. And I notice now when I wake up, I'm hungry. Like, I'm like, where's the food? I want some food. Whereas before, I thought it was completely fine. I'm like, oh, my body's good. It likes intermittent fasting, but it can actually do more harm than good for you.
Yeah. And depending on the part of the cycle you're in, right? And depending on your personality, like I said, I can't get over that. If you are my husband is the exact opposite of me. I am the perfectionist. I am the, not that he doesn't get things done, but I am the always thinking about my to-do list. He's totally happy to like chill and think about nothing. Like he is somebody who can just like shut it off, where I've got like 1,000 thoughts a minute. And he's often looked at me like, what are you thinking about? Like this is like 10 years down the road. And I'm like, yeah, what? It's course, whatever. He is somebody who's just so chill and nothing gets to him. Now, maybe somebody like him could do intermittent fasting because he doesn't have the stress running through his body all the time, where he can handle a little bit. But if you are like most women I know in today's world, it is not going to be the thing that gets you to lose the weight, or it's not going to be the thing that balances your hormones. It is not. It's just going to cause more stress and wreak havoc on your body, in my opinion.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So I want to ask you, where can we find you? Where can my listeners find you? And because you were talking today about cycle syncing, I know you do have a freebie, a little guide that people can download. Where can we find that information?
Yeah, so I have, you can find me on Wellness by Veda. It's Veda. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok. That's where I mostly post my stuff. I also have a website, which is just www.wellnessbyveda.com. That's where my social medias is kind of where I'm most active. And I do have a free guide. So it's a guide to cycle syncing. It will go a little bit more in depth of what cycle syncing is. It will go more in depth of exactly what foods to focus on, exactly what workouts, and it also integrates some lifestyle habits. Like, should you be going out with your friends during this phase, or should you be staying in, cuddling on the couch in your PJs? Like, what you should be doing. So that gives some insight on that. And you can find, I believe you might be linking the free guide below the show notes. So you can find that guide there. Or you can message me on Instagram Cycle and I will send you that guide as well.
Amazing. Yes, I'm going to put in the show notes not only the link to your free guide, but I'm also going to put the links to your Instagram, to your TikTok, and to your website. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can absolutely do it through the show notes. And we will be posting this interview on both of our Instagrams. And so we'll also make sure that there's a way to get it in that aspect. Do you have any last words or anything else you want to talk about in terms of cycle syncing?
I don't think so. I think my main thing is just listen to your body. It comes down to it. I know it can seem like chaos of like someone might be listening to this and they're like, but I just saw someone say on Instagram that intermittent fasting is so good. But I just saw someone say that birth control is the only way to regulate my hormones. And it can become overwhelming with the amount of information that's just so opposite with each other. But try it out yourself. Try it. You've been living in a world that might be following society's norms, but try it this way. Try cycle syncing. Try doing these things and see how you feel. And that will prove to you like which path you should actually take.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just going to add one more point to that. If you hang out with your girlfriends and you start talking about this, you guys might realize that you've sort of lined up your cycles. And if you say to your friends like, "Oh, I'm really tired this week, this weekend, whatever. I know we had plans to do XYZ, but I'm like really not feeling it. Why don't we do a movie night?" You might find that your girlfriends are sort of in that same place and they're like, yeah, I actually really want that too. And just having a bit of a community for it might actually help you talk about it, Because if you're not talking about how you feel, you might not be able to get into your body yet. But that could help you. And then B, just having a community, not feeling guilty about canceling your plans, because it's real. As you start to dive into this world, it is real. I'd rather movie nights by far in the second half of my cycle, and lunch dates in the first half. And I live by it unapologetically.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Veda, for coming on today. Like I said, everything will be in the show notes, but we hope that you get some awesome followers from this podcast, and we wish you well in your business.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you're looking for more information on how you can work with me, you can head to my website at www.michellescarlett.com or find me over on Instagram at michellescarlett_. And this information will also be provided in the show notes.